In this week's Top Gear, Tony Mason's slithering around at a driving school in Norway. Andy Wilman meets the magnum PI of the car world. And Steve Berry rides a bike from the people who build a better Ducati. A 100 years ago, the Daimler Motor Company set up shop in Coventry and started to make cars like this. It was the birth of the British motor industry and the genesis of something rather special. Pretty soon afterwards, Mr. Rolls and Mr. Royce joined forces to teach the world a simple lesson. If you want the best car in the world, you buy British. Well, here we are in 1996, and I find myself asking a question. Do we still make the best car in the world? To be the best, a car must do everything that modern technology allows. It must be capable of moving 4 people in great comfort and in silence. And it must cater for their every whim, even if they decide to go for it once in a while. The first test for the Bentley Turbo R is to see how the old Dowager fares as an Olympic sprinter. But to keep things nice and fair, we've trawled the world to find it some competition. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the best car made in Germany, the Mercedes S600L. The best car made in Japan, the Lexus. We didn't bother with France or Italy or Poland, but we have bothered with the best car made in America, the Cadillac Fleetwood Braun. Oh dear. I'm sure it's great on a stag night, but it's out of its depth here. So we'll get rid of it and take a look at the others. You're simply the best. Better than all the rest. Better than anyone. Anyone I ever met. I'm stuck on your heart. I hang on every word you say. Tear us apart. Baby, I would rather be dead. In your heart, at the start of every Mercedes uses a baffling array of technology to keep this staggeringly powerful 2-ton monster in check. It has the world's most sophisticated traction control system, so you can floor the throttle in the middle of a bend and nothing will happen. If you turn the limiters off, the 600 becomes a major handful. Now, Tiff was away racing in America, so we gave the testing job to a man who's used to oversteer, TVR racer Colin Blower.
Clearly it's very efficient, very safe. I tried pretty hard actually to not to crash it, but to really push it to the limits. And with its traction control and these gadgets all switched on, it really is, you have to be an absolute dimwit to crash it. So yes, it's excellent, there's no question of that, but not for me.
So, the Bentley.
The Bentley now, it feels a small car when you get behind the wheel. As soon as you've done a few miles with it, it feels quite taut. It almost feels like a sports car. To me, it was got lots of character. It's good fun to drive, plenty of acceleration, lots of horsepower. A totally capable car.
Now, obviously, the Lexus is a lot cheaper, but does that mean it's in a different class on the track?
Yes, it does everything very well, but it's dreary. It doesn't have enough horsepower. No excitement for me. Not a car for me at all. I didn't like it.
It's the same deal with Japan's finest on the road, too. People are swapping Bentleys for Lexuses these days, but it is a come-down. Inside, it's quiet and well screwed together, but it's soulless, and there isn't enough to play with.
It's oh so still. Shh, shh. been so peaceful until...
It's a superb executive car, but it's competing here with the plutocrats. It's Barnsley in a World Cup final, and it's time to say goodbye.
You never been so nuts about a guy you wanna love, you wanna cry, you cross your heart and hope to die.
This is more like it. Tasteful, restrained, large, Germanic, and it must be said, like a sort of adult version of Hamlet's. I've got heated seats. If the stereo's too loud, I have my own remote controller, so I can simply turn it down. Marvellous. And what's this? Oh, this is brilliant. Just, yes? Oh, fantastic. This is just incredible. Look at the space. What a car.
So what's the use? Wow! Of falling in love.
There are so many toys in this car that they've had to put the fridge in the boot. And you thought I was joking, didn't you? Look at these as well. These are the radar sensors to help you park more easily. But before we draw any conclusions about a car that obviously has one eye on the future, it's important to take a long, hard look at a car that has both eyes glued on the past. The Bentley isn't as spacious as the Mercedes. It certainly doesn't ride as well. And though they give you mirrors back here and a remote control device for the stereo, it isn't as well equipped either. However, while the Mercedes is a symphony in plastic, sitting in here is rather like sitting on the set of the Antiques Roadshow. Yes, I think you'll find this wood was made by a chap called Louis Depardieu, who had a workshop in the latter part of the 17th century on the Rue de Saint-Germain in Paris. This leather, hand-stitched of course, came I think from a cow called Daisy, who lived in Herefordshire in the 1950s. Look at this chrome, and just feel these carpets. Well, you can't, but I can. I'm searching for the right word, and I think it's splendid. Get out of the way, other road users. Move! I'm in a Bentley, move! Of course, one of the most important considerations with cars of this type is quietness. And I've been joined by Dennis here. Now, Dennis has a couple of ultra-sensitive microphones in his ears. He hears exactly what the human hears. The information he gleans is displayed on this psychoacoustic analyzer. This graph here represents 1 lap of Mallory Park in a Bentley Turbo, and its loudness rating is 20.2. Now, this is the graph for the Mercedes, and as you can see, it's quieter. Its loudness rating is just 17. But let me give you a shock. This is the graph for the Lexus, 16.4, the quietest of the lot. But of course the Lexus is no longer in this contest. As we move on to the trivial question of cost, it's a straight two-cornered fight between the Benz and the Bentley. Now, neither of these cars was designed by a man in a cheap brown suit with a calculator saying, "Ooh, that costs too much, we can't afford it." They were designed without compromise to be the best. And that doesn't come cheap. A tyre on the Bentley is £302 plus VAT. A new rear light cluster on a Mercedes is £8 billion. And then, of course, you've got to buy and run them. The Merc is £99,900. The Bentley is £136,000, £150,000 if you go for the long wheelbase version. The Merc does about 12 miles to the gallon. The Bentley does 10. The Mercedes will cost you £28,000 in depreciation in your first year. The Bentley will cost you £44,000. Things are looking bad for the big Brit Bruiser. The Bentley is fast, and when you're in it, there's such a sense of occasion. It's like a maiden aunt with an account at Ladbrokes and a fondness for single malt. I adore this car, and it would be my choice. But what you're looking at here is competence redefined. The Mercedes is Sharon Stone, Delia Smith, and Boris Becker, all rolled into one. What you're looking at here is the best car in the world.
Good evening. Do you live in a house like this? And are you fortunate enough to roll up outside the opera in one of these? And do you fancy a motorbike? Well, if you do, there's really only one flash steed with the thoroughbred pedigree that you'll be looking for. It's very expensive, it's very exclusive, and it don't half look funny. It's called the Bimota Mantra. Alright, at 13 grand, a handcrafted Mantra isn't exactly millionaire money, but in biking terms, it's double the price of most bikes that get Hellraisers all hot under the collar. It's got carbon fibre all over the place, and a 900cc Ducati heart, pumping out, for my money, 85 of the finest horses in captivity. It's quick, it feels just right. Bimota have actually made a concept bike that works. But that's the big picture, and Bimotas have always been about the delicious details. So I tell you what, you don't need me for this bit, so I'll be back in about a minute. It's all yours. It's all about shapes, triangles, perfectly welded circles. And check out these beauties. Yes, that is a walnut dash. For once, I'm at a loss for words. Is this a totally groovy motorcycle, or what? Winter is not the season for an unfaired machine, but you can specify a little windscreen if you want one. One accessory definitely not worth investing in is a passenger. Ride this bike in the manner it begs to be treated and you will lose friends, probably off the back. But maybe the looks are a little too outlandish for you. Well then take it for a ride and you just might change your mind. I know I did. £13,000 is a lot of money to pay for a motorbike, but I always thought that biking was about being different, and this is as much different as you can get for 13 grand. Japan is Bimota's biggest market, and the Mantra doesn't cost 13 grand there, it costs 26 grand. So darling, if you're watching, it's obvious, it's a bargain.
There are some crimes for which the long arm of the law just isn't long enough. To solve them, you need a special kind of person. Barry Hancock may not wear a trench coat like Philip Marlowe's, but he is a private detective. And instead of looking for Maltese falcons and millionaires' daughters, his job is to hunt down cars.
If it wasn't for people like us, only about 50% of the cars that are recovered now from overseas would come back.
Barry doesn't chase joyriders and riff-raff like that. His job is to fight the international thieves who steal cars to take them abroad. And that is no small task, because every year, thousands of cars are spirited across the sea.
They go out by ferry or in one of millions of containers. So even in a high security yard like this, police and container companies could be simply too swamped to detect the bad guys from the good guys.
We've got about 50 on the go at the moment. It's a wide range of vehicles. It's anything from Fiestas up to Rolls-Royce or luxury cars like Astons. The countries we're operating in is throughout Europe, Pakistan, Malaysia, South Africa, Australia, basically all over.
Barry's a bit shy when it comes to talking about money, but guys in his trade can charge around £2 for retrieving a missing car. And to get results, he relies on old-fashioned private eye methods, putting in plenty of legwork and acting on tip-offs from a string of informants he has placed around the world. Only recently he struck gold at a farmhouse in Spain.
There was a Mitsubishi Shogun that we knew was on a false plate, and we eventually found an address. And when we got there, we found that particular vehicle, and we also found a Land Rover Discovery. And while we were there, a third vehicle drove in, which we'd been after for some time.
Bingo.
Bingo, yeah, as you say, bingo.
But for Barry to be kept so busy, there's got to be something seriously wrong with the system. In Manchester, these people explain the problem.
Britain's like a sieve as far as car crime's concerned. There are that many ferries leaving the ports, there are that many containers leaving the container bases. Maybe every year we could possibly check 1% of all container freight that leaves the country. There is a boat leaves Dover every half hour, virtually 365 days a year. You couldn't be expected to check every vehicle that went onto the ferry. You couldn't be expected to check every container that left the ports.
Mercs and BMWs go to Eastern Europe, Porsches to Kuwait. Just about anything ends up in Spain. And Jaguars find homes in Japan, while shiploads of hot hatches are heading for the Caribbean. But it's the third world countries with their craving for four-wheel drives which gives Barry his biggest headache.
Some countries, the authorities assist with the importation of stolen vehicles. The people who are importing, who are acting for the government of that country, customs, etc., they will know that the vehicle's stolen, or there is something very suspect about the vehicle, but they will still enter it in for favours.
Now, there's a guy living down this street who's really felt the sharp end of international car crime. And when I turn up, I don't think he's going to be full of the joys of spring, because this car I'm in brings back some very painful memories. 18 months ago, Ashraf Zahir had his own Shogun stolen. For most of that time, he's known exactly where it is, but he still hasn't got it back.
A lot of people want a Porsche, a Ferrari, but to us, my family and myself, a Shogun was enough. It was like our pride, and it's like we were looking for it for a long time. We wanted that particular vehicle, and when we had got it, it was just gutted. You just can't believe the emotions that you go through when it's stolen.
The Shogun was traced to Pakistan, but Ashraf's attempts to get it back have been blocked by bureaucracy and offers of bribes to shut him up. To date, his efforts have cost him £6,000, and worse still, when it was stolen, his £18,000 off-roader wasn't insured.
When we lost 18,000, I mean, if we knew it was going to go so long, we weren't bothered spending £6,000 more on it. And it's just coming to a case that we'll have to give up because there's nothing that we can do.
We've currently got 14 vehicles in Pakistan that we're trying to get back. We've been working on it now for 14, 15 months. The end is not yet in sight, but we're plugging away at it and we hope to get a result eventually. But the whole system is against us.
Well, what a tale of doom and gloom. But thanks to Barry's handiwork, we can bring you a happy ending of some sorts. This is Gilbert Jordan, who runs a car hire firm in Hertfordshire. Now, 4 months ago, Gilbert had one of his cars stolen by a customer who did a runner to the continent. Gilbert was looking at a £10,000 loss, but today we should be able to give him a late Christmas present. If I can get the doors open.
There it is, Gilbert.
Well, that is it. That is it. It's complete with its tow bar as well.
Well, go on then.
Well, get it out.
Is it all in working order?
It's all in working order, and not only that, the heater's still on to cold.
Oh, poor
Which gives
lamb.
us some idea where it was last used.
Well, look, mate, you'd better get it on the road, get it cleaned up.
Yep, it's got to go out and earn some money now.
Earning some money. You've still got to pay Barry's bill, yeah?
Here's a quick glance at something fresh. What we're looking at here is Korean carmaker Kia's attempt at a junior Range Rover, the Sportage. It's neat, friendly and unintimidating. A trendy blend of super hatch and 4x4 with big chunky wheels, but an impractically pokey boot. Mind you, there are no pretentious 80s bull bars, roof rails or white-wall tyres. In fact, it's probably Korea's most complete car yet. It might not have the cred of a Discovery, but it doesn't look half bad. But at the wheel, things aren't so good. The gruff 2-litre 16-valve engine needs a lot of hoof to make it gallop. Not enough lugging power for an off-roader. And it struggled to better 22 miles to the gallon. But at 15 grand for the air-conditioned GLX SE, it's at least competitive. On road, it's refreshingly car-like, but with that commanding 4x4 driving position. And you can't argue with a 3-year warranty, electric windows, and standard ABS. It should do well, but it is hard out there. It might look more sexy than a Frontera, but it's not as loud as the Vitara or the RAV4. And as we filled up in Surrey for the second time that day, nobody even gave us a second look. Maybe they'd have preferred to see the 3-door, which will be around 2 grand cheaper, but that won't be here until June. Anyway, it's a budget off-roader that's certainly worth looking into. Sure, it might not be perfect, but it does at least show that the Koreans are getting better all the time.
As you'll have noticed, at the first snowflake, British drivers are renowned for locking their cars in the garage or getting into a hell of a mess. But not rally drivers. If they've any sense, they'll get out into the conditions and make the most of it in getting the best possible lessons in car control. The only problem is, it doesn't snow very often in Britain. But there is an answer. Here in Norway, the top rally star, John Haugland, runs his own winter driving school. From January to March each year, John runs courses for up-and-coming rally stars from all over the world. Nordic drivers have always had a special skill in driving quickly on snow, but surely he must get frightened silly by some of these newcomers.
No, not frightened. You feel it straight away. In the first corners, you feel it straight away if they know what they're doing. And if they doesn't behave then when I tell them, then I just hit them.
Oh, I see.
On this road we're going to drive on today, it's very important that we position the car correct. And we can use all of the width of the road, so positioning in front of corners is very important.
I joined a group of 6 drivers from Britain who had made their way over to northern Norway, taking their own cars with them. But before being let loose on the snow, there was an extremely cold classroom session to be taught the theory of it all. It gave everyone something to think about. I wondered if Stephen Chamberlain had any faults to overcome.
A lot of faults, to be honest. A lot of car control problems and no left foot braking. So hopefully throughout the course we improve on those and it made me a better driver.
Stephen is a true amateur who prepares his own 10-year-old Vauxhall Nova to enter smaller championship rallies in the UK. The Nova has a 1300cc engine, developing about 100 brake horsepower. Quite enough for the time being.
Right inside the ruts. Brake hard. Oh, poof, poof, poof. This is so dead in tears. All right, that's it. Waiting for the truck.
Room for improvement.
Yeah, well, that's why you're here.
This is a specially made track on a frozen lake. The ice is a metre thick, so there's no danger of going through, and using studded tyres, you can get up to 100 miles an hour.
We are using ice and snow to make them quick rally drivers on gravel and tarmac, and especially the ice on the ice lake, because it's slippery and they have plenty of space and they can play about with the car and get used to what happens when they drive on and over the limits.
Slipping and a sliding, keeping and a hiding, been told a long time ago. Slipping and a sliding, keeping and a hiding, been told a long time ago. I've been told, baby, you've been bold, I won't be your fool no more.
By the end of the course, the drivers had all mastered the art of left-foot braking while keeping the power on through the bend. They knew the car's limits and were driving with more determination, all of which would be very useful in their blossoming rally careers back home in Britain, whatever the weather.
It was dramatically different. I felt much more confident. I could get out of a sticky situation much more easier. It was really good. I mean, I was much more positive and braking better, driving more aggressive.
Well, it's a few years since I did any snow driving on events in my native English Lake District, and not on frozen lakes, of course. But this is an opportunity too good to miss. Come on, mush, mush!
My friend Stephen kindly loaned me the Nova. Unfortunately, the starter motor had now conked out. John Haugland was, of course, on board.
Through two-thirds of this corner. Coming out to the straight.
Yeah, I'm on the straight now.
Yeah.
Good Lord, it all looks white. You can hardly tell the difference between the road and the side.
There is a little corner coming down to the bottom here. And then you can either left or brake in this area, just accelerate everything you can.
Ooh, it's difficult remembering to take the left foot off the brake and then brake with the right foot.
Yeah, you must be able to use brake with both legs. Hard braking here on the left-hand side.
I can do it with 3 legs.
Hard braking, hard braking.
Braking now?
And now, hard. Hard, down through the gears, into the corner.
Now onto the left foot now.
Yeah, in. On the
oh, we're in the snowbank, no we're not.
Oh, it's all right. It's okay, just missed it.
Down through the gears into second, it's going sideways. Now I should be changing my left foot.
Yes.
That's what was wrong.
Yes, it's too many pedals and too few feet.
You can say that again. Did you used to be a ballet dancer or something?
No, not me, but Fred Astaire. He could be very good here.
Was Fred Astaire a good left foot braker, do you think?
Yes, I would be.
We'll go in now, I think.
That was good, this. You had a good feel for it, it didn't go off.
Oh, well, it brought back a few memories, that, John. Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good. It's a pleasure.
Great.
Good
Dear
fun.
me.
After all that excitement, it was time for everyone to put their newfound skills into practice and head for home. I felt a more traditional form of Scandinavian transport might be safer for me, however.
A rally school for this as well?
No, not really. This man here takes care of that, and he can show you what that is all about.
Well, this is a good one. Whoa, right, off we go. Go on, mush, mush.
Next week, Tiffany Dell drives the Geordie Lister at Daytona. And why, oh why, oh why, oh why are they killing Mike Cosworth? And a quick reminder that Top Gear is still available on your radio, so tune in to 5 Live to hear about the man with a world-beating passion for the Ford Corsair and the new Suzuki GSXR 750, which is a motorbike, apparently.